So when he diagnosed me with that, which is one step from death and often coma, it kind of woke me up that I needed to take care of my body because I had a choice here. And you often ask about people's why. For me, my why was I am going to make the decision to live. I'm going to make the decision to thrive because me being sick and incapacitated is not going to help anyone.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Leigh Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Now, if you've ever struggled with gut issues and felt like modern life is making things worse, this episode is really going to speak to you. This week, I'm joined by Elizabeth Bruckner, an acupuncturist, author, and someone who's walked the path of chronic illness herself. We dive into her fascinating journey into acupuncture and Chinese medicine and how that opened the door to a deeper understanding of gut health and healing. But what really stood out to me is how Elizabeth has embraced homesteading not just as a lifestyle, but as a powerful tool for reclaiming health and self-sufficiency. We talk about how growing your own food, connecting with nature, and simplifying your life can have a profound effect on your gut and overall well-being. So if you're ready to look at gut healing through a whole new lens, one that involves soil, sunshine, and maybe even a few chickens, you're going to love this conversation. Elizabeth Bruckner, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Leigh.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And to kick things off, could you tell us a little bit about your academic and professional background and what led you to study acupuncture and Chinese medicine?
Certainly. I am an author, an acupuncturist. I have a Master of Science in Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. I decided to go into acupuncture after many different careers that were profitable, but that were not fulfilling. And so I wanted something that was stable and also something that was going to light me up when I go to work. And being a natural-born caregiver and helper, medical field seemed like a good decision for me. So I spent a year interviewing many different medical professionals. At the time, I was holistically minded, but I didn't really know anything about medicine. I would have anything that the doctor told me I would have done. However, I was starting to step away from antibiotic use. So I was really a baby in terms of holistic medicine. And so I interviewed and shadowed a nurse practitioner, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, and an acupuncturist, among others. And there was a few reasons why I didn't do physical therapy. I liked that it was helping the body to heal, but you had to lift legs. And I knew that going into this degree in my 30s, it would be not something that I could do into my 80s, really lift heavy legs and such. And then occupational therapy, you were teaching people after strokes to button up their blouses. And I also learned that you had to help them in the bathroom. And I was like, I do not want to be doing that when I'm 80, helping people learn to use the restroom again. And then I happened upon acupuncture. A friend of mine said, I think this would suit you. And I had heard about acupuncture. I'd never had it. So I went and got some treatments. And I realized that holding a needle into my 80s is something I can do. Our needles are very, very tiny. They're like a few hairs. And so I pursued it. My husband followed me. He often says he followed a cute girl into grad school. And then we both started separate clinics. And that is where the real training happens. It happens in the clinic setting. So at the school clinic, I focused a lot on emotional disorders, because a lot of physical pain and chronic illness can come from emotional disorders. So I really wanted to see how acupuncture could help anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was able to see a good benefit to that. And then my training continued when I got a chronic illness. And this chronic illness made me so sick that I was bedridden for weeks, homebound for months, and unable to work for years. And I think as I said earlier, I'm a caregiver. It taught me, the body said, you need to start receiving. And if you're not going to, then I'm going to make you stop until you receive. And so we had to learn how to live on one income in a very expensive part of the world, Southern California. And so that is when I started to understand gut health. Before that, I knew how important it was. I was preaching to eat real food. I was eating a lot of organic food, but it was organic processed food with a lot of seed oils. I hadn't eaten refined sugar for maybe 15 years at this point. So a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, you're so healthy. But I was finding other ways to get that processed petroleum based and also sugars in through high carbs, packaged foods. Just because a box has a pretty happy, smiley flower on it and says it's organic and it's non-GMO and it doesn't mean that it's real food. And so that is where my gut healing journey began.
Mm. So, I mean, you don't have to go into detail if you don't want to, but what was your illness?
I went to 7 different doctors, and I will say that at the time, I was still very holistically minded, and I also thought it would be a good idea to get a Western diagnosis. So I say Western and Eastern because Chinese medicine is Eastern medicine, and what we do in the States is Western medicine. Some people call it allopathic as well, but I typically say Western. And so I wanted to get a diagnosis that I could then translate into acupuncture terms. And so I went to a neurologist and a thyroid specialist and a liver specialist. And each time I went, I would get a new diagnosis. So I think that I fit under a lot of the autoimmune umbrellas, which basically are labels that they give you when they don't know what you have. You just have a number of symptoms. Mm. One doctor said that my brain and my thyroid weren't communicating. And so some of the symptoms that I had was extreme fatigue, extreme brain fog. And I want to talk about brain fog because when I heard people mention brain fog before, I used to think that you're just a little cloudy. But brain fog to me it was so difficult to use my brain to make decisions like crossing the street. Like I live in a neighborhood with not a lot of traffic, and I didn't realize how many decisions you have to make before you cross the street. You have to look both ways. You have to make sure there's no other peds. You have to step off the curb to make sure you don't fall. My brain was so sick that I was unable to do those things. And so I would have to only cross streets when my husband was walking with me because my brain couldn't do it. I had intolerable noise issues. So I could not, if there was a neighbor talking out in their front yard and I was in my front yard, I couldn't talk as well. It was too much. It was too much stimulation. And I remember the first time that I didn't have to use earbuds in public after my gut started healing. It was absolutely remarkable. So that coupled with extreme weakness, I could not stand on my own at the very end stages. And things from my waist down weren't working. So my legs would give out, or if I sat down to get something out of a lower cupboard because I couldn't just bend, then I couldn't get back up. And I'd have to call for my husband, or if he wasn't home, I'd have to wait there until he got home, or I'd have to crawl. And so in terms of the diagnosis, after about the 7th or 8th doctor, I finally went to a colleague of mine that is an herbalist. He also has an acupuncturist, but I wanted to step outside of my family for treating me. And he was listening to my symptoms, and then he felt my pulse and he said, oh, well, what you have is yin separating yang. Now, yin separating yang is what happens a lot of times when someone's on their deathbed and then they get that little spark of energy and they say goodbye to everyone and then they pass away, and people are often like, she was doing so well the day before. That's when yin and yang separate, and it's your body kind of giving one last boost to clear up affairs, and then off you go. So when he diagnosed me with that, which is one step from death and often coma, it kind of woke me up that I needed to take care of my body because I had a choice here. And you often ask about people's why. For me, my why was, I am going to make the decision to live. I'm going to make the decision to thrive, because me being sick and incapacitated is not going to help anyone. It's definitely not going to help. It's a burden on my family, although they're not saying that. It's an incredible burden on, my environment and my economy, because we've got this body, this human body that is capable, when well, of being of service, and I'm unable to do it because I'm sick. So my why initially was just, I'm going to get better. And you had also mentioned in some of your podcast episodes about affirmations. I wouldn't have even called it an affirmation. I used to think that was too woo-woo. I call it, like, I was just very resolve. Like I knew that I was going to get better, and there was no other option. And that helped heal me.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that's exactly how I was when I blew a disc in my spine. Even though I knew that it takes a long time, because it's a disc, because it has a lack of blood supply, they do take a long time to heal. So from day to day, week to week, it was almost like there was no progress. So it would have been really easy to have catastrophized and to become quite depressed about the situation. But I just had this knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, it wasn't an affirmation. It was just a deep knowing, I'm going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously I was doing the right things. And eventually, inside 2 years, I was back to normal again. But what's quite interesting, you mentioned about yin separating from yang.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine had a heart attack around Christmas time, and he went into a coma. And he came round, and friends were reporting on social media, oh, he's doing really well. And then he passed away. So when you were speaking, then I was almost like, oh, that sounds exactly like what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
I've never kind of heard that concept before, but now you say that, I'm starting, straight away I've thought of one example where that's kind of happened.
Well, I think that in our culture, because we're both in Western countries, we don't talk enough about the process of death. So everything is a mystery. The fact that the body evacuates after it passes, like everything relaxes, that's a mystery, because we've been taught to just shuffle off and outsource it. I think we outsource a lot of the very important rituals and transitions in our life. And that's why when I talk about homesteading, it's really about stepping back and getting more connected to ourselves, because we have internal experts in us. And a lot of times I hear people saying, well, what did the experts say? What do the studies say? And listen, I'm all about reading more and educating yourself. And I do like studies. And I also know that if I slow down and get quiet, my body will tell me what works and what doesn't work for me. And for the longest time, I didn't even know that existed. And now I do.
So Paul Chek actually came up with a system called the 4 doctors.
Oh.
And the 4 doctors live within each of us.
Okay.
And we need to consult with each of the 4 doctors on a daily basis. Dr. Happiness, Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Movement. Right? So we have to check in each day and say, what am I doing to create happiness in my life? Am I living in accordance with my goals and beliefs and values? Listening to what your body needs in terms of nutrition, hydration at any one point, including what is your body telling you it needs? What does it need? Protein, fats, carbohydrates, and in what proportions? How much water does it need? How much rest and sleep do you need? What kind of movement is your body going to benefit from most today? Is it you're feeling really tired and probably just going for a walk in the forest or on the beach is going to be the best exercise for you today? Or are you full of beans and you can go to the gym and lift really heavy weights? Or go and play a sport at a high intense level, your doctors that are within you, if you listen to them, will tell you what you need. You don't need to outsource that kind of thing to someone in a white coat with a stethoscope.
It's really quite empowering. So we've got the doctor of happiness, quiet, diet and movement. So can we talk about these a little bit?
Sure.
And just the ways, because I think that when we hear that, it's like, okay, well, how do you do that? So I would love to chat about happiness. I would like to talk a little bit about each of them because I think they're really important. And maybe we can even give an example from your life too, because I think that those real life stories help people learn. And so for me, happiness is something that eluded me for a very long time. I was a giant proponent of must do. You have to do. My husband would always joke and say, are we going to this event because you want to or because we have to? And I'm like, what? I never want to. Like, I'm an introvert. I don't ever want to. And what I realized is when I started finding pieces of joy, that my body was healthier. And for me, this happened before I got sick. I started to learn French just for the sake of learning French. It had nothing to do with any accolades or any profession. There's not a lot of French speakers here, but it gave me such incredible joy.
Mais oui.
Tu parles français aussi?
Un peu.
Un peu. Oh, oui, c'est magnifique. And yay. And now I know who to bother when I want to talk in French. But this idea of doing something really difficult that other people always go, oh my gosh, you're learning a language. I could never do that. Well, because there was such joy there, it was absolutely simple for me. Another way that I create happiness in my life is I do frivolous acts of joy. So in the morning when I make my veggie juice, I used to just drink it at the counter and then keep going, because I'm from the East Coast of the United States and we just get things done. And then I said, well, how can I make that a 2-minute ritual that is joyful? And so instead I sit down with my dog and I pet my dog. And this morning I listened to a little bit of your podcast and pet my dog and drink my juice and just slow down. And that is frivolous joy. And you have an episode about play and healing a hernia. So I highly recommend people listen to that. But that's a bit about that happiness. Now, quiet is often hard for people. And so I think a meditation practice or even a prayer practice, I think prayer is when you talk to the divine and meditation is when you listen to the divine. I think that's important to instill. And you can do something as simple as a 3-breath meditation. So when I first started meditating, I had no idea what I was doing. I took a kitchen timer. We lived in a tiny apartment in San Francisco, and I would just go in and set it for 1 minute because that's all I could sit. And then, so I want to go into diet and movement, but what are your examples of happiness and using the doctor of happiness and quiet in your life?
Yeah, I'll answer that question in a second. But
yeah,
when you said you used to go to events, even though you didn't want to, you felt you had to, what came to my mind was the saying, your yes has no value until you learn how to say no.
I've never heard that, and I love it.
It's powerful, right?
It's super powerful, and I will have a caveat to that because a lot of people think, oh, you're introverted, you always want to be inside. We're very social beings as humans. I just wasn't doing the things that filled my spirit. So now when I go to a Weston A. Price Foundation chapter meeting, or when I teach Qigong, or when I go talk about how to create kefir grains and ferment your dairy, that lights me up. That feels fantastic. And it's surrounded around me knowing what I want, which is often I will not be at an event for 4 hours. You just won't see me there that long. Instead, I just honestly step away in an hour or two when I've had my fill. And the one thing about introverts, when you do this, when you really give your yes value by saying no, you become quite famous. Like everyone thinks it's so cool to see me because there's such limited time with me. And I'm at my highest self when I'm saying yes to the important stuff by saying no to the things that don't work.
Yeah. Yeah. And just going back to the 4 doctors.
Yeah.
And where that your yes has no value until you learn how to say no. Where I see it fitting is that within each of the 4 doctors, and again, this is what we teach in the Czech system. For each of those 4 doctors, what you need to do is to set core values based on each of those 4 doctors. So when we're talking about core values, you're getting clear on what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to, ultimately. Your core values about what do you stand for and what do you not stand for. So in terms of happiness, your core values for me is all about being really clear on what makes you happy. But that's only the first step. The next step is you need to make sure you're making time for those things.
Yes.
Right? How many people say, oh, I'd love to do that, but, right? So, for me, playing tennis is right up there, right? And yes, I would like to play more often than I do, but, again, my doctor movement and doctor quiet tell me that I can't play as much as I would like because, I'm not getting any younger and I need to be quite, how should we say, smart in terms of how much tennis I actually play. Because I don't play pitter-patter tennis, right? I play proper tennis and it's intense, right? It's a really intense exercise. So getting really clear on what makes you happy is really important. Now, if you're not clear on what makes you happy, it's like, so I always use this analogy. If you got into a taxi and told the taxi driver to drive, what's he going to say?
Where to?
Well, where do you want to go? Right? So not getting really clear on your goals is like getting into a taxi and not telling the driver where you want to go. So where you'll end up is not in your hands, right?
Yes.
So you've got to get really clear on what makes you happy, what you want to achieve in your life, and then put plans in place to make that happen. And also the way that you get there is by setting clear core values around those goals.
I love that you're saying this because a lot of times people aren't clear on what they want. And sometimes you want so many things, like when you're just waking up and you're starting to connect to the idea that this life is meant to be joyful. You are meant to delight in the breath that you take and the people that you are with. When you just start waking up, sometimes it's like a kid in a candy store and there's like 18 different flavors. And I say, just if you've got clarity, pick one and jump into that and make that a core value. And you will be amazed, even with little tiny changes, you will be amazed at how much your life changes over, like you said, it took 22 months to recover from a spinal injury. Well, you were starting the change at the day one of 22 months. And it might have been incremental, like you couldn't see it on a daily basis. And yet there's that trajectory that if you're just if you just turn 1 inch and you're going in a straight line, you're going to end up, miles down the road from where the original path was. And that's the same with healing, but it's also the same with intention. And so this idea of getting clarity is so important. And I often recommend to my patients and even my readers in my book to allow yourself to daydream. And that's a version of getting quiet so that you can look at the things that bring you the most joy. So maybe someone's listening here and they're like, you know what? I used to love playing tennis as a child. Why don't I play anymore? Maybe I should start playing again. Then allow yourself to daydream about that, and you will get clear on some of the tiny little steps that you can take to start on the road to bringing that joy back into your life.
Yeah. I mean, I had a 20-year break playing tennis.
Wow.
I played as a kid, joined a club in my early teens, played there for a couple of years, but then it got to the point where I had to choose between playing cricket and playing tennis because they both happened on the same day, basically. And I was much better at cricket than I was at tennis, so there was no competition. But when I got into my early to mid 30s, I was just itching to get back to playing competitive sport because I hadn't played competitive sport for maybe 10 years at that point. And I just thought, let's play tennis. Probably my worst sport out of all of them when I was a kid. But that's filled me with more joy because I have more to gain. Right? I have more improvement to, 20 odd years later, I'm still improving. And that's brought me a lot of joy. If I'd have found it easy, it probably wouldn't have been as much joy and as if I find it a challenge. Amanda spent 19 years battling severe IBS, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. Her life was ruled by public toilets, and she avoided holidays for fear of flare-ups. Doctors offered no solutions, just endless Imodium. After working together, Amanda discovered the root causes of her symptoms, and in just 3 months, she was IBS-free. She even booked her first holiday with her husband, a dream come true. If you're struggling like Amanda, visit www.bodycheck.co.uk to schedule your consultation. Let's find the root cause and get your life back.
And you're also creating a community around it, which is so important. Like, you are around people that are also clear that tennis is part of their joy factor. And so there's this innate knowing, right? When you're with your friends that are playing tennis, you're learning from them, but you're also connecting in the realm of pure joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would not want to play tennis with me. I was terrible in high school. Absolutely terrible. I chose working at a shoe store over getting my varsity letter, my varsity jacket, which is a big deal in high school.
Yeah.
I thought that
one of the downsides to tennis is to actually enjoy it, you need to play with someone who's a similar standard.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a big gap in standards, it's not enjoyable for either person, really.
So I really should have just been playing with toddlers, I think. That would have kept my chops up, my skills.
Maybe.
So you also talked about diet and movement, the doctors of diet and movement. And we were going to talk about gut health. And I think that diet and movement are like hand in hand for gut health. For diet, when I talk about eating nutrient-dense foods, typically what that means is not a lot of things in boxes, not a lot of things that I buy. It's very hard for me to find something at a restaurant right now because I'm using the gut and physiology syndrome book, GAPS.
Yeah, Natasha Campbell McBride.
That's right. Yeah. Fantastic book. A bit dense for a layman, but it will give you a lot of really fun. If you're like a science nerd and you like armchair biology, it's a great book. And so I'm on year 1 of that. I just finished year 1. I'm going into year 2. And so, but I want to talk about, because people were like, oh, well, nutrient dense food and you've got to cook your own food. So that's so hard. I am the queen of fast food for health food. So I will throw a chicken in the oven, and now I have, there's 2 of us in the home. So I have about 5 meals from one baked chicken that seriously took me 5 minutes. I wash it off. It's a good chicken, so that you don't have to wash it too thoroughly. It's not, it's not dipped in whatever they're chlorine, I think. It's a real chicken. And then I just throw a little chicken fat on it, some spices, and put it in the toaster oven. I cook all of my food in the toaster oven because my kitchen is too small. And now I have fast food that I can pull out and eat a chicken sandwich. I don't do bread, but my husband does. I can do a chicken salad. I can just have chicken and a side of vegetables. And I can make chicken soup. There's just numerous ways that you can make that a fast food. And that's one example. Another one that someone mentioned to me, because I think that systems in the kitchen are things that we miss out on. Thinking it's just too hard. If you just get some good grass-fed ground beef, you can make sliders once a week. And so we have chicken once a week, we have sliders once a week, and sometimes I'll throw some fun spices in them. This last time I threw chipotle in, and my husband was like, "Whoo, okay, we're just at the level of spice," because it was really
for the non-Americans. What's sliders?
Sliders are little tiny meat patties, so they're small hamburgers.
Right.
They just like a meatball, and then you squish it a little bit, and it's maybe smaller than the size of a woman's hand, a woman's palm, very tiny. And I like them because they cook fast, and then you can just pop them in, in the toaster oven to heat up. So all of this easy food, and then a few of the absolute basics for gut health, because those are good foods, but they're not miracle foods. Like chicken you'll still be hungry. You need some fat. You need more than just burgers for your diet. But these are good burgers from local farms. The other thing that I do, like the pillars, are meat stock, which is collagen-rich stock that I have all day long. I have like 3 cups a day. And people are like, oh my gosh, meat stock with chicken feed and pig's feed. How do you do that? It's actually quite delicious. And it's very satiating and settling. And so if you're sick, you can just, if I have a cold, which happens very rarely, but if I feel something coming on, I'll have like a few meals that are just meat stock, and it will help cleanse my gut. It just heals and seals the gut. And then fermented kefir, which is a cream or a yogurt, and then that just colonizes in your gut. And so these are things that I do every day. Like I just make them on the regular. I make a large batch of meat stock, and when it goes low, I make another one. And these things are easy to do. They seriously take less than 5 minutes each time, and then you have them for a week or so.
Well, I mean, I have a very similar philosophy. I'm not, I'm not big into cooking. I'm not a chef of any kind. I don't enjoy cooking, but it's very high on my list of values to eat nutritious food. I'm busy, and if it takes longer than 5 minutes, I wouldn't do it. So, today I just cooked some ground venison, chopped some salad. As the venison's cooking, I'm chopping the salad. It literally took 5 minutes, and it was very nutritious, tasted really great. A little bit of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of olive oil on the salad. The only thing I put on the venison was salt and butter, grass-fed butter. Tasted amazing. Very nutritious.
Yeah.
I still feel full now. So how long ago was that? 3 hours. I had a late lunch today. I was at a meeting. Yeah, 3 hours ago, I still feel full. I still feel like I couldn't eat a thing, which is always a good sign. So
it's a very good sign.
Again, part of Dr. Diet is tuning in to how you feel after you've eaten. So 1 to 2 hours after you've eaten, well, if you're still satiated, that's a good sign. If you're hungry and needing more food, that's a sign that whatever you ate didn't work for you. And that's what I call feedback, right? So it's tuning in to Dr. Diet and getting clear on what works for you.
Yes. And it sometimes it takes a little while. Like if you're detoxing and you have a high sugar, high processed foods, you might have a couple of weeks of difficulty. I know that I had some headaches when I stopped doing all of those things. But once you push through that, and I also think that fat, like high good fat, like butter, Sally Fallon Morell always says that vegetables were made by God to hold butter and broccoli for real. That broccoli can hold so much better. It's absolutely amazing, but it does satiate you. And as you get more comfortable with Dr. Diet, that internal expert, it really will tell you. What I know for me is that chicken is not enough. It is not satiating enough for my body. So it doesn't mean that I don't use it. It's just when I have it, I might have some pureed cauliflower with 3 sticks of butter, like a head of cauliflower, 3 sticks of butter. And then I cook that for a half hour or so with a little bit of meat stock. And then I just use a hand wand to make it into kind of a mashed potato consistency. And I'm getting a boatload of animal fats. That's very satiating when I have my chicken and probably broccoli or some green. When I have that with it, that's going to satiate me. I know my body will feel satisfied. If I don't do that, the Dr. Diet will want to keep going back to the fridge.
Yeah.
If I find that I'm going to the fridge, I realize I probably didn't have something that was heavy enough when I say heavy enough, I mean nutrient dense enough. And usually that's fat that I'm lacking.
Yeah. Meet Julie, a 47-year-old working in computer sales who had been battling lifelong IBS. She suffered from severe abdominal pain, bloating, and frequent loose stools, low energy, brain fog, and hot flashes, all of which affected her work and quality of life. After thorough testing, we discovered the root causes: parasite infection, bacterial overgrowth, leaky gut, low digestive enzymes, and a vegetarian diet high in oxalates. With a tailored plan, Julie made dietary changes, added targeted supplements to balance her gut microbiome, and supported her digestion with prebiotics, probiotics, and enzymes. The results? Well, in Julie's words, the improvement is staggering. Her pain and bloating vanished, her energy levels soared, her brain fog and hot flashes disappeared, and her immune system became stronger than ever. If you're struggling with IBS or gut health issues, reach out today for a consultation at www.bodycheck.co.uk and let's uncover the root cause and create a plan to transform your health. Yeah, I find with chicken, so if I eat chicken breast, that does nothing for me. It's like I've eaten nothing.
Yeah.
If I eat chicken thighs and I eat enough of them, then they're very fatty, I feel great.
And the skin, if you season skin right, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it will get, and also it's interesting that you say that, because I love chicken wings. And I think it's because there's a lot of tendons. And this is, I'm a recovering vegetarian. So people often laugh because I was a vegetarian for 27 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, it was part of the downfall into chronic illness for sure, because I just wasn't getting enough real food and my body was breaking down. My body had to eat itself to survive. And so when I talk about these things that in the American culture is just like, you don't want to talk about it at all. My one friend calls my liver pate that I make meat pudding. She's like, oh, I can't stand that you're having meat pudding. And like, I love it. It took some time to get used to it. And now it's so easy to make. It takes 20 minutes. And then I have, 10 days worth, and I freeze some of it. And I do really heavy garlic and rosemary in it from my garden. And it is so delicious. And my body loves it. As soon as I eat it, my eyes become a little brighter. I think one of the biggest surprises for me, and maybe you've been working with Dr. Diet longer than I have, but one of the biggest surprises for me was the incredible sense of calm that I get after a nutrient-dense food. So I'll just be like, wow, I feel really chill right now. And I didn't even realize if I had to have a tendency, I definitely had a tendency more towards depression than anxiety. So I didn't even think that I was kind of tightly wound. But then when I have real food and my body kind of settles in, that is Dr. Diet's way of saying, okay, this is exactly what you need right now.
Yeah. Something you mentioned earlier was being a homesteader. So for those who might not be familiar, how would you define what it means to be a homesteader?
Well, there's two types of homesteading. The traditional word homesteader came back in the 1800s. So in 1862, in America, we had a series of homesteading acts, which allowed the federal government to grant 270 million acres of land to private individuals. Some of those people were Ma and Pa Kettle, the raccoon hat, holding the rifle, got a pitchfork in the other hand, have to fight off bears, make all their own food, their homemade clothes. And so that was a few people that got that land. Others, there were very rich people that got the rest of the granted land, but that's another story. The modern homesteader may have some of those attributes. I definitely own a pitchfork for sure. I do not make my own clothes. I do not, thankfully, fight off bears. But there are many spokes to modern homesteading. In one sentence, I would say modern homesteading is an intentional way of life. It's a mindful choice in living. You're stepping back into traditional skills. And a lot of people are homesteaders and don't know it, which was the case with me. Like when I first started homesteading, it was during the pandemic, and I went to the grocery store and there was no organic garlic or ginger. And I had never realized how fragile our food system was until this moment. I had visited as a teenager. I went to Russia right after the fall of the Iron Curtain, and I saw what it was like to see gigantic buildings empty with like one piece of bread on a shelf. Like that was mind-blowing to an American mind. And I thought that was only possible in places like Russia. And it turns out it's not. It happened here. And it can happen from a hurricane or a tornado. It doesn't have to happen because of a pandemic. And so I came home very worried. And one of my wise friends often say the prescription to anxiety is action. And so my husband said, well, why don't you try growing food in the backyard? And I said, have you met me? Like, do you know who I am? I'm the lady that kills everything in the backyard. And then I thought, well, why not give it a try? And that's where it took off. And so when I was looking at homesteading and gut health, so from a practitioner point of view, I just loved learning new ways that I could teach patients to have better patient compliance at home and build up their health. So fermenting, edible landscaping, composting, cooking traditional nutrient-dense foods in easy 5-minute sections like you and I do. All of those things, when I was looking for them online, when I was researching how to do it, the word homesteading kept coming up. And I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm a homesteader. I finally came out as a homesteader. And I live in a suburban area. Now, my book talks about how to become a homesteader in an urban area, suburban area, or rural area, because it is my belief and my experience has shown this in witnessing others that any type of body can be a homesteader, and any place you can be a homesteader. You can connect more deeply to your innate resourcefulness.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess my view of a homesteader is someone that I guess lives off the land. That was kind of how I see it. Do you see a connection between gut health and the homesteading lifestyle? And if so, what are some of those key links?
Well, I think they go hand in hand accidentally, just like I became an accidental homesteader, because when you are doing traditional skills, I believe that those original homesteaders back in 1862, they probably had incredible gut health, right? There was nothing getting sprayed on their lands. They were eating seasonally. They were and so this is what we're doing as modern homesteaders as well. If you're gardening, you're putting your hands in soil, and there's a ton of microbes on those in the soil and then on your hands. If you're pulling up a carrot and you're washing it right from your garden, you're now getting some of the microbes from that soil into your gut. And the microbes from the soil are more varied than our gut. So it's absolutely remarkable. Homesteaders in the 1800s would preserve vegetables through lactofermentation, which is a very simple practice of taking salt water, 2 cups water, 1 tablespoon of salt, and then putting vegetables in it. And then every day, just opening up the jar to burp it for the first 4 to 7 days and then putting it in cold storage. That will increase the vitamin content in the vegetables by up to 12 times the vitamins, and also creates a lot of lactobacillus and a lot of probiotics. And so when you're doing these things, you're automatically healing your gut. For example, sauerkraut, which is very easy to make. I never knew that until I started making it. In 1 teaspoon of sauerkraut, there are more probiotics than your fancy in the health food store bottle of probiotics, the $58 bottle of probiotics. It is less varied and less effective than the sauerkraut that you've had on your counter for me, I had a recent sauerkraut for 7 months on my counter. It's absolutely delicious. And again, the doctor diet is telling you, that internal doctor is saying, this is the stuff to eat. So I try to do a little bit of fermentation with every meal, just a spoon or 2. And so, raising your own livestock, you're also getting, microbiome help, because your skin has a microbiome as well. And when your gut is healed and sealed by using nutrient-dense foods, you're able to absorb those things better. And then it becomes this very happy ecosystem. The bacteria that we often talk about that causes issues, a lot of times that bacteria is very important. It's just when it's out of balance that it becomes an issue. Candida is meant to be in your body. Candida overgrowth is what we call something that can be cancerous and can make you really sick. And homesteading balances that normally. Even with doctor movement that you talk about, when you're homesteading, you're not sitting in front of the TV that much. You're cooking, you're walking around cooking, you're in your garden, you are taking walks with friends, because you're really connecting with community and figuring out who has skills that you can use. There's a number of ways that this can increase your gut health.
Yeah, there's there's a brand of sauerkraut. I can't remember the name of the brand actually. But what I do is each week I buy a different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a traditional sauerkraut. There's another one that is sauerkraut with beetroot in it as well. That is really good. And then probably my favorite is a sauerkraut with turmeric and curry.
Mm.
Oh, that tastes so good. And like you say, you don't need much. You just need a little tiny bit on the side. You don't need to be, it's not like you're eating a vegetable, right?
That's right.
You just need a tiny little bit. It's quite tempting to eat a large portion because they do taste so good. But yeah, I love those. I love those. And yeah, I guess I could make that myself. But for someone who, let's just say I feel like I'm time poor, it's the best option for me just to buy it, Did you know that 92% of people fail to follow through on their New Year's resolutions? That's right. Year after year, most of us start strong and then lose momentum by February. Sound familiar? But what if this year could be different? What if you finally had the tools to make your goals stick? Introducing Stickability, a simple, effective, and affordable program designed to help you overcome the cycle of failed resolutions. In just a short time, you'll learn how to create lasting habits without wasting hours or breaking the bank. This isn't just another plan. It's the solution to finally sticking to your healthy lifestyle goals. Don't let this year be like the last. Head over to stickabilitycourse.com now to enroll. It's affordable, easy to follow, and packed with tools to make 2025 the year that you have the ability to make it stick.
Yes, and when people are looking to buy it, what I recommend is just looking on the back of the ingredients list. If it has the vegetable, salt, and water, that's what you want. If it has vinegar or any ingredients that you can't read or understand or pronounce, then you want to step away from that one. So in America, Bubby's is actually quite a good brand for pickles. It's just salt, water, and then cucumbers. And then there's in Southern California, there's something called Fermentation Farm. And if you look, you can probably find something similar in your areas where they are actually fermenting it as well. Have you ever heard of beet kvass, Leigh?
Yes.
So beet kvass, for those of you that haven't heard of it, is one of my favorite things because it's very easy to make and it's got a high volume. So you're taking that brine that I talked about earlier, the salt water, you're taking 2 or 3 beets, you're chopping them into 4, you're throwing them at the bottom of a jar, filling it up with the salt water, and then letting it sit for 7 days. And then every day just opening the jar to let some of the air out. And beet kvass was actually one of the secret ingredients in a Czechoslovakian village. There were 2, or maybe it was just, I don't know if it was Czech Republic. I think it was Czechoslovakia at the time. Who knows? The names change often. But at the time, there was one village that had a normal incidence of cancer, and then there was this other village that had no incidence of cancer, and they were all eating pretty much the same thing. They had the same lifestyles. And when the researchers asked what was going on, they're like, we don't know. And right before dinner, they're like, would you like some beet kvass? And they're like, hold on a second. What is this beet kvass? And it turns out the other village was not having, that was the only thing that was different, that they were not doing beet kvass. So beet kvass is fantastic. It's also from a Chinese medicine perspective. It's red, so it really helps the heart and the blood, and it's very cleansing and it's delicious. Like you can put other things in it. You could put a little bit of onion, or you could put a little bit of pepper. And pepper is great for killing parasites naturally. So it's something that's, if you're not into, if like Leigh, you're a time poor, and just go to the store. But if you're interested in maybe trying something really easy, I say beet kvass is one of the easiest ones, because sauerkraut, you have to put in a processor if you chop it up. It's pretty messy. But beet kvass, you just chop it in quarters and throw it at the bottom of a jar.
Yeah, for those in the UK, I've just quickly looked it up. So the brand that I was talking about, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's spelled S-U-U-R. Sure or sure, I don't know. And I've just clicked on one of them, and the ingredients are cabbage, beetroot, natural salt, and fresh ginger.
That's what you want. You want real ingredients. And so when we're talking about homesteading, people can feel really overwhelmed. And I would say just take baby steps. Like just go to the supermarket, find some sauerkraut or some pickled vegetables, and just read the ingredients. That's all you have to do. That can be your first step to good gut health. And then you can build from there. You don't have to be a fermentation maven. I love fermenting. They're like my pets. but that's my thing. It's not everyone's thing. Others mostly think of, like, in the pandemic, a lot of people were Instagramming sourdough. Like, they put their little stamps with the flowers on it and they make it into braids. And I mean, it's amazing. And I told my husband, do you think we need to do bread? And he's like, well, you don't eat bread. And I have a baker at the farmer's market that does a 48-hour sourdough ferment. So why not outsource to someone we know and trust? And so now instead, I'm voting with my dollars. I'm allowing this baker to make incredible nutrient-dense food that has like 3 ingredients, and I'm also saving time. So you don't have to do everything that you think other people are doing. There's many spokes of the wheel, and you can just take one.
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you to write? You've mentioned it, that you've written a book. What was it that inspired you to write your book, The Homesteader Mindset?
Like you, Leigh, I really love to teach what I learn almost immediately. I think I learn better when I teach what I learn. And I feel that there is a great deal of hopelessness in the world. People are feeling very hopeless, very vulnerable. And the antidote to hopelessness is empowerment. And so the homesteader mindset is a way to help people through story, because I'm taking 3 different families, a single woman in urban area, a suburban family of 4, and then retired couple in a rural area. And I'm explaining how their lives have changed in these simple, tiny ways so that you can kind of just enjoy the story, but it will also ignite some of the ideas that might fascinate you. For instance, I had one reader say, oh my gosh, I never thought about putting basil in my windowsill. Why am I not doing that? And I love basil and it makes me happy. And so it's bringing back that idea of joy, of happiness, Dr. Happiness into your life. For me, there is nothing more satisfying than walking out to my front door. My herb garden is in the front of my house, and clipping off some rosemary and then throwing it in water and having a herbal infusion in my daily water. It feels like I live at a spa. So you'll find the things that you love. And that is what I wanted to impart to people that read my book, that solutions are fairly simple. A lot of times we hear, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and change is too complicated. And this book debunks that 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, like a lot of people, I've been having a lot of deep thoughts in the last 5 years because of, what's been going on in the world. And when you think about it, you think, and again, this is partly thinking about, what children are taught at school. And you can't, well, what's really important? What's really important, really, right? And you think, well, you need a roof over your head. You need food on the table. You need connection with other people. And you need to have fun, right? Everything else doesn't really matter, right? And then if you look around, and again, going back to, education, we're not taught anything about how do you keep a roof over your head? How do you make sure you put nutritious food on the table, not food-like products that are sold in supermarkets? We're not taught about communication, how to communicate with other people. And there's very little fun. Certainly nowadays. I mean, when I look back, my days at school in the 70s and 80s, I had a lot of fun because I spent most of the day playing sport. Right? I was, out and getting muddy and running around and having fun. Yeah, I mean, yes, I did have to sit in a classroom for the other half of the day, but it just, I guess I've got this vision in my head that we should all be homesteaders.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
And then how much need would we have to go out and earn money and have a 9 to 5? Far less than we do now.
That's exactly right. A lot of homesteaders that are successful live under the poverty level in terms of income. But if you look at their lives, they live, I will often say that I have a better way of life than many billionaires times over. When I look at the way that they eat, when I look at their relationships, when I look at the fact that they're buying more to fill up something, I'm sure there's some happy billionaires for sure. But when I look at the way my life is structured, because I was really clear, and my husband as well, that we want to work diligently, but we don't want to work hard. And we don't want to do the American rat race, which is easily 60 to 70 hours a week. I've done that. I've done that kind of work in my 20s, and it was debilitating, and it didn't give me any sort of spiritual, emotional, or physical profit. And what are we here on this life for? It's not for me to have a house with 2 more bedrooms. That makes no sense. It's for me to delight, to be of service, to receive and accept love. Those are the most important parts of the human existence. And you can have that if you do some of the spokes of homesteading for sure.
Mm. Yeah, because when I think about it, obviously you need builders, plumbers, electricians, people like that, because you need a roof over your head. You need people producing food.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it is, again, connecting with other people and having fun.
Yeah.
Okay, there'll be some need for that kind of thing. But again, if we were all homesteaders, if we were all eating healthily, the world might not need people like us to do what we do. We might need to do something else anyway, which would be great.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a better world to live in, but then we would find something else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's exactly right.
Rather than, AI take over the world and take over all our jobs. And, anyway, that's another podcast. So just going back to your book, you talk about 3 major myths that hold people back from making positive changes. Can you share what they are and how people can overcome them to build simple, gut-friendly habits?
Certainly. I mentioned them very briefly earlier, which is I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and change is too complicated. And so you actually have a course on creating routines and habits. It's called stickability, is it? And so I think that it probably would go hand in hand. When people say I don't have time, finding time, I utilize the idea of using found time, which is any time that you reach for a distraction, that is found time. So you get home, you're exhausted, you kick off your shoes, you sit down with a bag of chips, and you watch a television show. That is found time. It doesn't mean you stop doing that, but there are ways that you can utilize some of that found time for creating progress in your life and creating more joy and more fulfillment. Because honestly, I don't know anyone that would say, on my tombstone, I want to say I've watched all of, all the seasons of Lost or Stranger Things. Like no one's going to put that on their tombstone. So what you can do is something like habit stacking and habit chaining. Habit stacking is where you're doing something that allows you to have distraction, but you can do something else at the same time. For example, when I'm washing dishes, I will often listen to podcasts about how to grow herbs and healing herbs in my backyard, because I'm very interested in having an herbal pharmacy. For someone else, that might be, how do I ferment? Maybe I'll listen to a podcast on fermentation. Another way so that's habit stacking. Another way to utilize found time is habit chaining. So you take a habit that you already have. Everyone has habits, right? Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Maybe what your habit is you brush your teeth every morning. Well, after you brush your teeth, then you may want to have your shoes out and take a 5-minute walk. And I'm talking tiny habits, a 5-minute walk just to start moving your body, which is going to help your gut health, because you're going to be breathing in outside air, which has incredible microbes that we don't have on inside recycled air. One way that I habit chain is when I make my fresh veggie juice in the morning, right after that, I'll do a 5-minute task. So this morning I took my kefir grains out of my yogurt and I put my yogurt in a cheesecloth and in the fridge so that it would strain, and I would have whey, and then I would have like a Greek yogurt. That took me less than 4 minutes, and it happened right after the habit that I normally do. So that's found time. That's how to access I don't have enough time. You can do this in little itty bitty ways. And I do it a lot with like ice cream for dessert in terms of habit stacking. So if I take a walk and I'm learning Spanish and it's difficult because I just learned French and my body is like, what are you doing with this second weird language? Like I don't have a filing cabinet for that. That's uncomfortable. What's that?
Muy bien.
Oh, habla español también. Oh,
Poquito.
Wow, we're going to be fun language nerd friends. So, so a lot of times what I will do is I'll take a walk and I'll have ice cream before dinner. And what that means is I'll listen to 5 minutes of French, like a podcast in French, and then I'll listen to 5 minutes of something Spanish that may be difficult initially. And then I'll end it with more dessert where I'm like a reward where I'm listening to 5 more minutes of French. And so in that way you can habit stack. So you come home, you kick off your shoes, you got your bag of chips because you're not working on that particular habit just yet. And you go, I'm just going to listen to 5 minutes of how to ferment vegetables. And then I'm going to turn on my Netflix or whatever I'm watching. I'll watch that. And so you're habit chaining. You're doing the habit beforehand, and then you're allowing yourself. Then you're going to feel a lot more happy knowing that you did something, one little thing productive before you went into the old habit. The second myth is I just don't have enough money. And we talked a little bit about this, that a lot of successful homesteaders can live under the poverty level, which means that they might not be making a large income, but their monthly nut is much smaller. So perhaps they are renting out a room in their house to save, or they've downsized and they've gotten a house that is more reasonable, or they're living in a neighborhood that they can afford better, or they've gone from 1 car to 2 car, which, believe me, I've done in the suburbs. It's possible. It's not that painful. If you organize it, you can have 1 car for a family. And so you're just finding ways to make your budget a little slender. And then because of that, you won't have to work as many hours. And when you're not working as many hours, you're able to do things that are joyful. So for me, going out into the garden makes me super happy. And having the time to write a book makes me extraordinarily happy because I've allowed myself to live within my means. And then also homesteading can be really inexpensive in terms of one man's trash is another man's treasure. So let's say you really want to have more produce in your life, but you don't have a backyard. You can go to neighbors, especially if you live in the suburbs. And if they have fruit trees that are not being harvested, you can knock on their door and say, I'd like to harvest this. Let's give a third to you, a third to me, and a third will donate to charity. Or you can even share land. So you can go to someone with an ugly plot, right? That's just not being taken care of in an urban area. I'm not talking a big, gigantic, empty lot. I'm not talking about community gardens because they take a lot of organization, right? And you got to get on a list. What if you just went to your neighbor in an urban area that had a little tiny patch of dirt next to his or her stairs, her stoop that goes into the building, and say, look, I would love to grow some herbs here, and I'll share half of it with you. You're offering them a pretty garden and free food. A lot of people will say yes. And so those are some ways that you can save money. Propagation is another one. You clip off a branch of a plant and you stick it in water, not all plants, but many plants, and you can grow roots. And then you share them. I constantly propagate, and then I'll just put something on, I'll send out a text message to people and go, do you want a propagation of this particular plant? I've got some tomato plants that are ready, and I get a lot of yeses. And then lastly, change is complicated. This is something that I think has, it's almost like a myth that was created to stop us from empowering ourselves. It's a myth that keeps people trapped and imprisoned in the rat race. And what I will say is, all you need to do is look for delight and make delight a priority. And then you will find your subconscious mind will find ways to make it happen. So a lot of times when I have something that I really want, I'll write it down and then I'll just let it go. And I'll wake up the next day, or I'll be taking one of my delicious detox baths, and this incredible insight will come to me because my brain was working on it all the time that I let it go. And so as you're listening to us and you're thinking, oh, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a good idea. Allow yourself to look at the delight of it, not the I should make fermentation because this lady says that it's going to be good for my gut, but rather, that brand that he said, I wonder if that's at my store, and what will good gut health give to me? And then you start just dreaming about what the possibility is. Your brain will then allow you to find simple steps for changing that. And so my book talks a lot about that, but also your course talks a lot about that. So the two go hand in hand, this learning how to create routines that are long lasting.
Yeah, one phrase that really stands out for me as well is that you can't manage time, you can only manage your priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, where you need to get really clear on what makes you happy.
Yes.
What's really important to you. And then prioritize those things.
That's exactly right.
And the one thing just to add to that is change takes energy.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, change is scary.
Yes.
As humans, we feel safe when we repeat the same habit over and over, right? But another word for that is our comfort zone. But what I always say to my clients is, you'll never achieve anything amazing by staying in your comfort zone. The magic happens when you step outside your comfort zone, which is always scary to start with, right?
Yeah.
But the more you do that new thing, the more comfortable it becomes, right? It's like learning to drive, learning to play a musical instrument, learning a new language. It's more scary when you first start. It's more overwhelming when you first start. But the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more confident you get, right? And then eventually you can do it without even consciously thinking, right?
That's right.
Anyone that's been driving for 10 years or more, you get in the car, you don't even think about driving, right? You're probably having a conversation with someone.
Mm-hmm.
You might even be having a telephone conversation. You're listening to the radio, whatever it might be. You're not thinking about, hitting the brake, hitting the accelerator, turning the steering wheel. If you've got manual gearbox, changing the gear with a clutch. And the same with the language. Once you've been talking a second language long enough, someone starts talking to you in another language, you don't even think about it. You just start conversing with them in that language, right? And it's the same with our behaviors. So, the first thing might be, let's say you're buying different foods. So now you've got to cook slightly differently. Well, it might mean you need to buy a cookbook or two, maybe. And then, you might need to use the cookbook initially. Oh, how much of this do I put in with that? And how do I do this? Then once you've done it for a few weeks, you don't need the cookbook anymore because you know how to do it, right? So I guess my important message is be willing to step out of your comfort zone to achieve the things that you want to achieve, to live in alignment with your Dr. Happiness, to live the kind of life that you really want to lead rather than the one that you moan about every day, right?
Well said.
Because only you can change that.
That's exactly right. Well said. And I remember, 10 years ago, I read every book on time management because I just thought I was really bad at managing time because I was always over the edge. Like I always had too much. And it took me until the pandemic to realize that I just had bad priority management. Everything was a priority. I was doing everything that everybody thought I should do, and I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. And so when change is difficult or uncomfortable, if you have something that really ignites your passion and your motivation, it's worth the discomfort and you will feel it. You will feel kind of aligned with, oh, this is a worthy effort. This is worthy of effort. This is worthy of my time and energy.
Yeah, I will give one shout out for a really good book. And I'm sure it's one of the best-selling books ever. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That book is amazing.
I haven't read it in a long time. I read it in my 20s. I should read it again.
It's so good.
Is it?
It is so good.
I
As long as you actually follow it, right? You can't just read it and then your life's going to change. You actually have to, put one foot in front of the other and actually create some change. But
implement it.
It does really help. I use his techniques quite a lot with my clients.
Do you read the book more than once? Like, is it something that you read on the regular? Or
that book in particular? I think I've read it once and listened to it maybe a dozen times.
Oh, good to know. All right, listeners, there you have it.
That was 20 odd years ago, and it's still is very, very prevalent in my mind because it's just such a good book.
Well, thank you for the recommendation because I read it a million years ago and I think it's time to reread it.
So still talking about your book, one quote states, badly done is better than well said. Can you unpack that a little bit? Like, how does it relate to gut health and taking action?
It's one of those quotes that I think I'm eventually going to make into a t-shirt because I think it stops people in their tracks. It's my personal take on Ben Franklin's quote, well done is better than well said. And I thought, oh, okay. Yeah, Except as a recovering perfectionist, that means I will never get anything done because it's got to be well done. So for me, badly done is my battle cry. For those of you that even heard me speak in Spanish and French during this episode, I have a cute little foreign chick accent, and I love it. And I don't intend to get rid of it because it shows that I'm comfortable making mistakes. There's a polyglot that I work with, Benny Lewis. He speaks 10 languages, and he says that he makes it a goal to make 200 mistakes a day. When you change your perspective to go, oh, making mistakes is a good thing, and that's how I'm going to learn, it really softens the blow of perfectionism. And so badly done is my battle cry whenever I'm attempting a new project. And I think that a lot of people will often say, how do you get I've done a lot of really neat things in my life. And the way that I've done them, number one, I focus on joy. And number two, I'm really good at making messy mud pies with whatever project that I do and being okay with it. It's really cute when I speak in French with my cute little California accent. It's adorable. And I know this because when a Parisian speaks to me in English and they have this really strong accent, I'm like, oh my gosh, you speak 2 languages. I am so impressed by you. And so badly done, let it be your battle cry for all things that are worthwhile.
Yeah, again, just going back to something I said earlier when we were talking about doctor diet, I said, if you eat a meal that's not right for you, it gives you feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a longer quote that I didn't tell you about. So what tends to happen is, I get my clients to do diet diaries and they log how they've responded to each meal. So 1 to 2 hours afterwards. So how has it affected their satiety? How has it affected their mood? How has it affected their physical energy levels? Now, what tends to happen is people have this inbuilt reaction to handing in their diet sheets, like handing their homework into their school teacher. Oh no, I'm going to be told off, or I'm going to get a score out of 10 or whatever it might be, right? And the way I try to calm people down, because that's not why I'm not judging anyone. I'm just trying to help them work out what works for them. So I say to them, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Mm.
Right? Because like you said, what's the best way to learn? It's by making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you eat something, or you eat something in the wrong proportions and it gives you negative feedback, you've learned something. You've learned, okay, so something within that meal wasn't right. Maybe I needed more fat. Maybe I needed less carbohydrate, or vice versa. And then the next time you try it, if you felt better, then you know you're moving towards what we call your biting point, right? So where you get dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when doing something new, you've got to expect to make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
right? I still make mistakes every time I play tennis. But every time I make a mistake, I'm trying to learn from it.
Yeah, you're not throwing the racket down and saying,
No,
forget
not
it.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
yeah.
there'll be a little shout because I think, oh God, I played 2 or 3 really good shots, then missed the easy one. But then once that shout's gone, it's gone,
Mm-hmm.
and I've moved on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you say, I don't throw my racket, I don't throw my toys out of the pram, don't have tantrums.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, oh, okay, what if I was in that situation next time? What would I do differently? That's all I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. And you can only get there because there's this level of non-judgment. There's this level of feedback, not failure, because your brain is already looking at it in that way. And so if there's one takeaway from this talk, I think that would be it. It's that knowing that non-judgment, non-violence, because we're practicing nonviolence when we're eating nutrient-dense food, when we're helping our gut health. And we're practicing non-judgment when we go into the refrigerator and we see that the kimchi or the sauerkraut actually has a lot of ingredients on it. Okay, that is feedback. You're now doing something differently and you'll be able to move forward from that. So feedback, not failure is a remarkable slogan.
Mm. Yeah, I've found it very powerful, and I know my clients have found that very useful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get over that, going back to school kind of,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if someone had a bad time at school, which a lot of people did.
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to take them back to that experience. So very quickly you have to explain to them, no, making mistakes is fine. It's just it's how we learn, right?
That's right.
So you mentioned earlier that you've dealt with chronic illness yourself. How did you manage to apply the homesteader mindset whilst navigating your own health challenges?
Well, because I had a history of treating patients for anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, I knew that chronic illness could lead to depression for me very quickly. Prior to getting sick, the best medication that I used for what I call mind colds, I renamed depression mind colds because it just felt like it was a slump. And if I didn't give it too much value, then I could work my way out of it. The best prescription for that was exercise. Within 15 to 16 minutes, it was almost on the dot, I would feel kind of a shift in my chemical makeup. And so being chronically ill and not being able to move, I knew that I was in a tricky spot because I couldn't move my body, and yet I didn't want to go into a deep depression on top of being ill. And so what I did was I started taking what I learned from language learning, which was focusing on joy, focusing on the fun, doing the things that I like to do. I had started learning just before the chronic illness, and I used that in my homesteading journey at all as well. And I remember I didn't know I was a homesteader until 2020. But when I was in my chronic illness, I started to homestead. And I think one of the first things that I did, if I remember correctly, was creating fermentation. Because there was a time in my illness where I was no longer bedridden, but I was homebound. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and you can only learn languages so much. It was great to immerse, and it was fantastic because it was a different world. My teachers didn't know I was sick. I didn't talk about it. I looked sick, but you wouldn't know. And so there was this universe where I wasn't talking about the symptoms. I wasn't talking about the illness or how it was creating my life for all my loved ones. That's all they wanted to talk about because they cared about me. And then I took another step in creating a universe of wellness, in that I started fermenting. And I think someone gave me a kombucha SCOBY, and I tried that. I'm not actually a big fan of kombucha, so I just tried it. I did jun, which is it's kombucha, but it's with honey, not refined sugar, because I didn't have any refined sugar in the house and I couldn't go out. And so I started with that, and I found out that I just loved this idea of growing. I loved learning about the biology of what's happening when lactofermentation is happening. And then I did pickles, which I actually don't do very well because I don't often make them very crunchy. And then I did carrots. And then I would learn some more about the gut microbiome and how it's helping. And also, because my ancestry is from Belarus, there's a lot of pickling that's in the colder countries. And so there was something in my DNA that was waking up, and I was remembering the jars that my grandfather and grandmother had. So I was kind of reconnecting to this old world tradition, all in the comfort of my care, my home, my safe haven home where I was healing. And it just slowly brought me back. And again, I wouldn't say to someone, if they're dealing with chronic illness, what you need to do is learn French and ferment. That's not the prescription. The prescription is when you bump into something that causes you an incredible amount of joy, cling to it. Cling to it like a life raft and create habits around it. So I learned how to create habits. I learned how to have a life of frivolous joy through language learning, and then it bled into homesteading. And then the more healthy my gut became, the more capable I was of creating more positive change. And then now the world is my oyster. Like every day I wake up, I'm like, what am I going to do next? Podcasting was one of the things that I wanted to do. I really like talking to people one-on-one, especially as an introvert. This is fun for me. And so it's my new thing that I'm learning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening to this thinking, homesteading, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like something I could potentially get into.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for the first step? What would be the thing that you would perhaps suggest people start with?
Well, the very first step would be to discover it. Find out what felt really good in this conversation and go peek on YouTube about it. for sure buy my book. It's a really fun book that will give you ideas of, there's hundreds of ways that you can homestead, and it will give you some ideas. If I were to say like, okay, I'm ready, I want to homestead, what am I going to do? I would say first take 5 minutes right after this call with Dr. Quiet and just sit down and daydream. What really ignited my joy? For me, if you start talking about backyard chickens, I'm going to get excited. I don't have any backyard chickens yet. I want them. I really want eggs. I want to feed my backyard chickens my vegetable scraps. I have a whole daydream about that. And so that feels really good. So if it were me, the first thing that I would do is I would sit down, I would daydream about what backyard chickens are going to do for me. What's the fun in that? And then what ways can I learn about it more? Can I go to the library and get the Chicken Chronicles by Alice Walker? Can I go on a YouTube and look up backyard chickens and just see a chicken cam where I see chickens walking around? Like, what can I do that's going to bring me a little bit of joy and a little bit of education? And I would habit stack that onto something that I'm already doing. So if you're commuting to work, then I would have 3 podcasts about the thing that you heard here that really kind of lit you up. I would have 3 podcasts on that title or in that theme. And then I would listen to that instead of listening to music just for 5 minutes. And then I do 3 because if there's one podcast that I just think is not useful at all, I'll delete it and go to the next. You can also go to the library and get lots of audiobooks that you can use in a commute as well. So there are lots of ways that you can bring homesteading in. And the very first thing I would do is look for the joy.
Awesome. Great. And what's coming up next for you, Elizabeth? Any exciting projects on the horizon?
Yes, I think that my next book is in the works. I'm not quite sure how it's going to be titled, but it's something about healing pain through gut health and through castor oil, which, oh my gosh, we could have a whole other podcast episode on castor oil. So, and then I would like to do a course as well, an online course about that. Yeah.
Awesome. And finally, where can listeners find out more about you? Where do you want to send people? And potentially, where can people buy your book?
Thank you for asking. My book, The Homesteader Mindset by Elizabeth Bruckner, is available on Amazon or anywhere you buy books. And if you would like a free habit tracker, you can go to my website at www.createwellnessproject.com/gift, GIFT.
Awesome. Great stuff. So Elizabeth, thanks again. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, you're a lot of fun, Leigh. Thank you so much for an entertaining and deep diving episode. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So that's it from Elizabeth and me for this week. But don't forget to join me, same time, same place, next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.